Would you look at that? Look what I got on right now. Elite Sports branded apparel. Is it because I work for this podcast? Is it because I created this podcast? Yes, to all of those questions and more. It's also because this sweater saved my life in Dallas because I was so cold. Thank God I brought this in my jacket, in my bag. Super warm, super comfy. Most of all, just squaring around. So you can support the show today. Go to elitesports.com. Shop their full list of athletes, too. It's not just us on there. Use code SQUARE at checkout. Elitesports.com. Use code SQUARE. The college football playoffs have ended. And if you are not a Michigan Wolverine, you're probably not very excited with how your team ended up, especially if you're a Husky fan. I'm so sorry for you guys' loss. But you can still shop the greater lineup at Home Field. Home Field's got all the products you need. They got teams all across the country, not Texas State. But we're hoping to change that soon. So shop homefield.com. Use Square at checkout. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Squaring Around. I'm Jakob Rodriguez. That's Andrew Zimmel, the Texas State Sports Press. This week, we are joined on the Republic of Football Podcast Network with our boy, the editor, the sports editor of the San Marcos Daily Record, Colton McWilliams. Colton, thanks for joining us this week, buddy.
Ain't no problem. Like I said, February's just kind of been a hell month for me with all the basketball, baseball, and softball. So
I did the math actually. If everybody's like, "Where the hell? Why aren't they doing interviews? Why aren't they booking guests and stuff?" This is my freaking month so far, and I've been on basically like a 6-week bender at this point. Next week it'll be 7 after I complete a few other tasks. I'm just going like on quests basically. So that's why we've kind of been dropping the ball, but a lot to talk about, including basketball, which is why Colton's here. So we'll start there.
Tired of winning the tailgate, but losing the games? We can't help that. But we can tell you what the hell is up with each team and what's going on across sunny San Marcos. Texas State fans, get on your feet. You're listening to Squaring Around with Jakob Rodriguez and Andrew Zimmel.
This is a presentation from Texas State's grad school.
This is a bad idea. Cut the cameras. Cut the cameras.
Brother of Jacob. Hello, mom and dad. Love you guys. Grandma, grandpa, whole family.
Don't pretend like you're being like held hostage here. This is like
I'm hanging out with fucking Osama bin Laden here in the cave, and Jason's acting like he's like a hostage.
Support world languages and literature departments all across the world.
Important message.
Very cool. What is his thoughts on the men's basketball team? And that's what I care about.
You know, Colton and I have a shared hatred for the show Yellowstone.
On back rub?
Don't, thanks.
You want to give man?
No, I don't.
And it's because of our shared hatred for fake cowboys. And the three of us are very boots on the ground, literally at times, journalists. And so I think that's why when the basketball team suddenly plays good? Question mark? It really wasn't good. They were down 10 at the half to the worst team in the fucking Sun Belt. But they ended up pulling out the win. Now they play Southern Miss, a team that they have beat at some point this year. Can I tell you exactly when? No. I've watched exactly 2 whole basketball games this year because there has been no real reason for me to watch because I don't get paid to watch that shit. What do we feel about this team headed into today's game? When do they play? 6 or something, right?
Yeah, 6:30.
Yeah. I was gonna say this is the prime, like, let's make sure the thing that we record Jacob can edit later. Like, so we're gonna start with the story that's happening tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So in case if they win, we'll use this clip. Can you believe the basketball team won, boys? They're continuing the streak. This is incredible. They're hot right now. TJ finally figured it out. And if they lose, Jacob can edit this part. This basketball team stunk all year. They didn't have any perimeter defense. In the middle, they had no rebounding or defense. I'm glad they're gone because we can focus on real sports like baseball.
Well, here's the
now
thing.
Jacob can use both.
Here's the thing. Do we blame TJ for the failures of this team? You think so?
He's the head coach.
I blame TJ for the recruiting aspect because I still think not 100% of this class is contributing. And that's a problem. And it's a problem when it happens year after year. especially when it's your first year and this is all of your guys and all of your coaches. So it's pretty bad. I do still think that last year could have been what this year was supposed to be, and then Mason Harrell just willed us into the semifinals. That's basically what happened. What I texted you guys yesterday was, I think we win tonight against the worst team in the league, and then we get blue balled and we lose tomorrow. Or, like we just get our hopes up. If we win tonight, I will be very, very surprised.
So hold on, though. You said something interesting. I want to get Colton's take on this. So Jakob just said that last year could have been as bad as this year, if not for Mason Harrell. So do you now look at TJ and say this is 2 bad years of basketball?
I think so, honestly.
I asked Colton.
Oh, my bad. Well, so this is what you do. You say, do you? You didn't say, hey, Colton, is this what you think?
I just said
I know, but when you ask questions, you tend to ask questions like in a long-winded, like roundabout.
How? This is a very direct question. Jakob just said that last year they were bad, but Mason Harrell saved them. This season they're bad. Colton McWilliams, writer for the San Marcos Daily Record, do you consider this 2 bad years of TJ Johnson or TJ as a head coach? Coach Johnson,
Terrence Johnson,
terrible dismount, but it was a good performance. The Russians are giving me a 7.5.
And you're on roids.
I've been very conflicted about this season because when we first started men's basketball season, like how we was supposed to play out isn't exactly how it's been playing out for this season. Because when this season first started out, it was apparent it was going to be Drew Drennan at the 1, Tyrell Morgan at the 2, Dylan Dawson at the 3, Brandon Love at the 4, and then one of our like a Chris Nix or a Christian Turner at the 5. None of that even happened. It turned out Drew Drennan and Tyrell Morgan both go out with season-ending injuries. We haven't even seen them like play a lick on the court. We have to turn to a sophomore point guard, a true freshman point guard who's basically been starting the entire season until he got injured against South Alabama. And then the reason they've been on this won 7 out of their last 10 games to end the regular season is because they've been held together by a sophomore forward in Davion Sachs, who's been averaging almost a double-double during this entire time span. Like I said, I can't decide whether or not this season is a failure or not, because this team was not what it was when it first started out with, and they basically had to cobble together something to finish out the season. And it's to say the season's a failure when the team is being held together by 2 sophomores, a freshman. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about this basketball season because it's obviously not what it was supposed to be. Okay.
It's March. What do you mean you don't know how you feel about the basketball season? It's March. You should have an opinion. You should have a take.
Not only is it March, in keeping with our Texas history from last week, today is the dawn of the Alamo, where the Alamo was sieged on the final day, March 6th.
Did you know, Colton, this is a true story. Jakob has a Santa Ana jersey hanging in the rafters. Did you know that?
No.
It's crazy. He's like, best presidents. I was like, I really like.
On the day that the Alamo was not defended by the Texas defenders, does Texas State win against Southern Miss in beautiful Pensacola, which is the home of the Sun Belt for some reason now? Awful
transition. Colton, answer the question. It's March. You have to have an opinion.
So I guess considering when they entered, I honestly felt like the men's basketball season was going to be a whole lot worse than what it was going to be, because when they first started off, they won one conference game, and it was just I thought this was going to be what Old Dominion was really, how Old Dominion season, and then all of a sudden they routed off 6 straight home wins. They beat App State at home and they beat Troy at home, which is the 2 teams that, I mean, when you compare to last season, I don't think they even beat one of the top teams until the tournament play. It all happened in the regular season. It was clearly going down into the basement, and then all of a sudden, midway through the halfway point, they go on a 4-game winning streak. Then they beat App State at home, which I did not think that this team was going to pull off. Then they slide off a bit because I realized, like, oh yeah, this team does not play well on the road. It's the opposite. They just play really well at home. And then when I was thinking about it, watching the final 2 home games, I was like, yeah, this is going to be the team that's going to beat Troy at home. And turns out they beat Troy in overtime. So that's why I'm just conflicted.
You're optimistic. You're very positive.
Bullish on the
Jacob,
Bobcats.
This is good. I like this. I like a positive spin on things.
Well, like I said, like when I was watching, there was a point in this. I don't know. I think it was before the 4-game road stand that included the App State game. I literally thought this is like a dumpster season. Like this is like, I don't know if they're going to get more than 4 wins out of this thing. And then they, like I said, they win 7 out of their last 10 like regular season games. It was just like, okay, I can at least see something. Before that, I could not see a single thing like, how is this team going to turn around? At least I see something in Davion Sykes, like, during this streak, he's pulling like double doubles and being the leading rebounder. We're not talking about, 5 or 6. No, we're talking about 10, 8, 9 rebounds, which is really what they needed and which they really didn't see last season. That's why I'm a little bit optimistic about how this, especially how it ended, because like, okay, I could see like where this team can be. Like the season was already like going down the dumpster, but now that they kind of turned this thing around and you're seeing pieces kind of pop in and out. Yeah.
Turning around feels like a stretch, but Jacob, we've boxed you out long enough.
I think this team is very far from our beloved Takers. I'm wearing the shirt.
Well,
right
yeah.
Beloved Takers.
Beloved. Well, you maybe not beloved because all of those players hated you.
One of my least favorite teams.
For whatever reason, the entirety of the Takers hated you, and the coach too, and the media dude who flipped that thing and clapped back on you on Twitter. Anyway, enough hatred about Andrew. The thing that I was most confused about for this ODU win is one that we won because I was avidly rooting against us at one point. I think I texted Colton, please put us out of our misery.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's insane. I cannot wait to clip that part and be like, Jacob roots against the Bobcats all the time. That's crazy.
I also picked Southern to win the entire Sun Belt this year, too. So
in the preseason.
Preseason I picked Southern to win. So that's another reason I'm kind of rooting against the Cats to keep my take alive. Because if you go back and read that preseason article about the Bobcats, it is dog shit. It was like Christian Turner is going to be like Bobcat of the Year. Didn't happen. Still is not happening. Who the hell else? Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, well written, but did not hold up a lot of takes on that one. So, but the thing I'm talking about, this team was like super unconfident, even post win. They couldn't even believe that they won.
Hey, I've quoted my really good friend Amir at South Florida, and he says, "Gritty, not pretty," and that's what that was. We found a way. I thought that, those early jitters really took over, and we were doing some things that were not so us, but, credit these guys around me. They settled themselves down, and we got back to playing Texas State basketball.
Our senior guard, Dylan Dawson, before the game told us, whatever happens during this game, stay together. And, we were down 10 and a half. Second half, wasn't pretty, like Coach said, but we just kept believing, and going into overtime, we knew that we weren't going to lose.
Like Colton said, just keep building, getting one day better, and preparing for our next opponent.
But they were like, yeah, that was crazy, right? That was basically the entirety of the presser.
And this is what we talked about last week. If you listen to the podcast, I was saying that it's the difference between like Nigel Pearson and Mason Harrell and KGT and just the guys that came before that. There was like a swagger about it. You know what I mean? There was they
expected to win, even though they probably should not have sometimes.
Well,
like even when they played horribly, they were still like, that was great. And you were like, what are you talking about? Are we watching the same game right now? And you would have these conversations with them one-on-one.
It was that, and it was also when they played bad, they knew that they played bad. Like when not like case in point, when Nigel Pearson goes, I think 0 of 18 in a conference tournament game, the conversation is not like
a time you were rooting against the Bobcats. I'll just say that.
Me? I never rooted against the Bobcats. I was so upset. I was so upset he went 0 of 22 in that game. Like, why? I'm not rooting against the Bobcats. I'm rooting very much for the Bobcats. And I'm hoping that he needed to play better. And I said that, and all of a sudden I'm the bad guy. Whatever. But like when there was bad games from the better players on the Bobcat teams in the past, it was like, okay, well, we know that Nigel Pearson is not going to have 2 bad games in a row, right? But here, because there is not a Mason Harrell, because there is not like a true, in my opinion, a true captain of either the offense or the defense, we consistently are trying to find the next guy. We need just to have one player who will step up every night, and I don't think that they ever had that this year. Colton, you saw more games in person than either one of us. Does that feel fair that they never had somebody that was just like the guy?
Yeah, that's something that I also asked Coach Johnson, like in pressers, like, there's always been a Mason Harrell or a Nigel Pearson that's kind of been the focus of like who's kind of like the heart and soul of the team. This year, like there was never really that guy, and I don't know if it's because there's not a whole lot of senior leadership on the team, or it's like I've been saying, it's literally just a bunch of sophomores and freshmen trying to hold this thing together. If there is one guy that's really stepped up, I have to give credit to Davion Sykes. I mean, that's the guy who's been probably the most consistent player out of like during this season. That's been the guy that you can count on to get like your rebounds and your points. Other than that, a lot of the players, it's really been like a lot of inconsistency. Like, before the Troy game, before Colton Benson had his career 28 points, I mean, the Troy game, I don't think he had like less than like 3 points. There's not like a lot of consistency with a lot of the players, but if you can look at one guy, it's really Davion Sykes, who's kind of been the more consistent player. And then you can also add Jordan Mason in there too. But yeah, with this team, there's not really a Mason Harrell or like a Nigel Pearson.
No, and that's clear.
That team, yeah, but that
that's
doesn't
clear.
give.
So when you say that you are optimistic for the future, do you see any of these guys that you're like, okay, yeah, next year he's going to be the dude, like he's going to be the guy that carries the team?
Yeah, if I had to make my picks, it's like I could see Davion Sykes being the dude who carries the team. I also see Jordan Mason. Like really, it's Jordan Mason, Davion Sykes, and Caden Gums. Those are like the 3 main people I can see. Like, okay, these guys are going to like pick up that torch that's been dropped and going to turn this kind of thing around. The stuff that they built up like late in the season, turn this around and have the potential to turn this into something what we're used to seeing, the team competing for those conference championships and then hopefully making a deep run in the tournament.
Have we been used to seeing that?
Yeah.
Teams that are competing deep in the playoffs for conference championships.
We have yet to win a conference tournament ever since they started doing conference tournaments. So
since we joined the Sun Belt, yeah.
Yeah, no, since the Sun Belt, yes.
So you can't even say we're good at it because I guess
No, I would argue you can say we are not good at it. I would argue
winning regular season titles maybe in the past 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What
good
like
is
you were
the one
saying all season long, Coach Johnson has been like, we don't have any leadership. We're looking to find a leader. We still haven't found a leader. Yeah, it's been kind of sad, honestly.
Which and Colton, I'd love to hear your take on this. That to me is really a bad look. What do you think?
No, I kind of agree because I think this team is really lost without not having someone like a Mason Harrell. Like I think there's a notion of like everyone's looking at each other like, okay, who's going to step up, and not everyone's like stepping up, even though we've seen guys step up. I think that's more on the players saying like, okay, because you can't, for me, I don't know, like someone needs to like kind of get everyone around and all of that stuff. It's like, hey, like to be that Mason Harrell and be that Nigel Pearson, like Coach Johnson can't like force that onto anybody. That has to be someone that's.
No, I'm blaming Johnson because it's up to a coach to instill the confidence in the players. And like you recruited these guys, you know what they can bring to the table. You can't get it out of them. Like, and look, maybe you can't. Maybe it was just a bad recruiting cycle, injuries, weirdness. Somebody has, a flu for a couple days or whatever, and you just never can really get in the cycle. And maybe that's all that happened this year. But I can only go off of what they give us. And every press conference has been, we didn't, we don't have leadership, or we're looking for leadership, or we just can't get on the same page. And at some point, like, again, it's March. They've had like 4 months to figure it out. And look, we're recording this the day they're playing a game, and shit, maybe we're all off and they win the conference championship. But I'm going to go on a limb.
You also got to remember, like, when the season started, like, Jordan Mason, Davion Sykes, and Kaden Gums weren't even supposed to be like the main people, like, starting on the team. Like, it was supposed to be a Drew Dren and a Tyrell Morgan and Dylan Dawson, and yet they've been dealing with, like, we've seen 2 of them like be out with injuries. Those are really like, this is me like kind of theorizing and all this stuff. It really felt like those were supposed to be like your next, not Mason Harrells and Nigel Pearsons, be that senior leadership that kind of give the team that confidence. And then all of a sudden, like, everyone goes out with injuries, and now you're looking towards like having 2 sophomores and a freshman.
But it's not even senior leadership, because Nigel was the leader of the team when he was a sophomore. Like, and I understand that you're not going to get those guys. Like, the Nigel Pearson only comes through the program every once in a while. Like, I think he's the all-time leading scorer. Like, you only get one of those every couple of years. But to not have anybody, and to come into this podcast, come into this like last week of the season, last game of the season, and I asked, like, hey, what are your takes? And it's like, I don't know, never could get on the same page. That is a bad look. That's a bad sign, Jacob.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's just sad basketball to watch at the end of the day. At the game that we went to go see the Bobcats, I guess, probably midseason, maybe a little bit after midseason. And by the way, everybody, in college basketball, usually if you're a starting freshman, a true freshman that's starting, they say you're really not a freshman after January, February. Like, you've played so many games, you've had some experience, you went through summer workouts, into the spring. These guys, they're full-fledged, sophomores at this point, basically. Caden Gums, biggest example of that. But we were at this basketball game. An unnamed source came up to me and Zimmel, said hello. And I was telling him, that Zimmel hadn't been into a basketball game circa 2020. And he was like, wow, well, the basketball really has gone downhill since then. And if that's just like a sentiment that is shared by that guy, I mean, it's not good overall.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's it. I think that's a really good way to capital, like, just,
Yeah, no, I think you and me have both said that, like, whatever happens this season is like, whatever. Coach Johnson needs to have a pivotal moment in the recruiting cycle, and then also just go to work next season and shut everybody up.
We're not going to get rid of him. So there's we're not, like, there's no way we're not going to fire him and get out of the contract unless something crazy Danny Casper-esque happens. We're with him, which means one of two things. A, he's going to get better at recruiting and we're going to get a good team next year. Or B, we're going to record a podcast every week about how bad the team is. So it's one or the other. So hopefully it's the latter. Hopefully it's them getting their stuff together.
But this is a super young team. Even like the guys that they have, I think we only have like 2-3 seniors at the most. And so assuming people don't hit the portal, looks like we could return a bunch of people and then feed in some transfers.
Yeah, so only Chris Nix was the one that was honored at senior night. So basically everybody is coming back for this team. So, like, I think Drew Drennan got a medical red shirt. I think Tyrell Morgan got,
That's fire.
So probably about 95% of the team's coming back. So
Drew Drennan and Jordan McLeod both be playing for 7 years at this point. It feels like that's crazy. But that's what we live in.
Optimistic Colton says next year is going to be the best year we've had in a long time.
Did Tyrell Morgan get a red shirt too, or no?
I think so, because if I remember correctly, he was injured like during the Ball State game, and that was like the second game in the season because that's when they were doing the Sun Belt back. Yeah. But from everything I've heard, like, I think he's coming back, and I know Drew Drennan's coming back. It's kind of what you were saying. It's who's willing to ride the ship, but who's going to be jumping into the transfer portal. I think that's the main question. And I don't know, like, who all wants to stay and who all wants to go.
And this is where you kind of build that, like, core in these tournament moments. You kind of are like, oh, okay, these are the guys that we can rely on. This is who's a Bobcat, and this is obviously somebody who's just not with it right now. So it'd be kind of interesting to see. I should watch tonight. I should do my due diligence and at least watch these guys hit the court one more time this season. Let's talk about Colton, or not Colton. I just gave it away. Let's talk about Zimmel's favorite player, Colton Benson. Have you liked his development? Is he the next dude up? Could he possibly steer this ship in the right direction? Zimmel's already sticking his nose in the air, so I guess no.
Well, the question again, hey, mister, you asked long-winded question, and you don't tell who it's for. Who's it for? Was it for me or Colton? Because
I'll give that one to Colton.
I mean, he has the potential. It's just like he needs to show like a lot more consistency. I mean, you can't drop 28 points like against Old Dominion, but the night before you're scoring less than 5 points. I think he needs to show a lot more consistency and like in this offense, because there's a reason why Caden Gums was the person starting as a true freshman, and then Jordan Mason was also starting over him. So I think he maybe, but like he needs to be a lot more consistent than what he was this season.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If we lose tonight against Southern, Zimmel, is it over? Was it always over? Do you expect
it was always over? I want to go
not...
through the Colton Benson stats just really quickly.
Oh, okay.
So
Old
Dominion, he has 28 points, which is his season high. The game before, 4 days earlier, he goes 0 of 6 from the field, 0 of 5 from downtown for 3 points. Against ULM, the team that would be a revenge game, 9 points on 3 of 7 shooting.
Perimeter shooting, by the way, is the reason he was recruited to come to Texas State.
Yeah. Georgia State, 17 points. Hey, that's pretty good. Georgia Southern, 2 of 10, 1 of 6 from downtown, 7 points. Southern Miss, 17-point game, 6 of 12, 3 of 6 from downtown. Goose Egg against South Alabama, 3 points against App State, 3 points against Southern Miss, 8 points. So like he only has had like a double-digit spurt here in the last like 3 weeks. So hey, is he going to be the guy next year?
They were saying
probably not.
When we saw him, because he went through that whole transfer portal deal where they were like, hey, if you transferred twice, you cannot, because he was like a prep school guy, and then he came over here, whatever. But they were saying that he was just not in shape. And I was like, isn't this thing's whole deal to be in shape? Shouldn't guys just be in shape? I'm in shape.
Like the prep school?
I'm the writer.
Is that you're talking about the prep school? To go from prep school? I think
well, no, not even that. I'm just saying, like, as a basketball player at Texas State, and you went through summer workouts with the team.
Yeah, that's fair.
You have a private trainer.
That's a fair point. I don't want to get like on the same wavelength I was like 5 years ago, where I just like pick a player and just like shit on him every week.
You already have, so.
But I'm just saying like
shtick.
The conversation about like, is Colton Benson the next guy to carry the team? I'm gonna definitively say no, he's not. That's not gonna happen. Maybe he stays around and plays and does really good as a kind of complementary role. But to say like, hey, could this guy be the guy that carries a team? The answer is no.
I really want my guy, Drew Drennan, back in action 100%, ready to go.
Talking to Colton, I have a lot more positivity, right? Like I think that I get wrapped up in the week to week, game to game, just getting drudged down in like, hey, why can't we win more than 2 games in a row? Right? Like, I think that kind of
but they did win 4 games in a row.
Oh, look at that. They had a 4-game win streak at one point.
Games? Why can't we win games? Why can't we win games? Why can't we?
But no, I kind of agree with you, Andrew. Like, if you're saying, the people saying that, oh, Colton, is he the next, major player? Like, I've been really ignoring like what Davion Sachs has been doing and what Jordan Mason has been doing. Like, I think that's honestly like being a complimentary player is like a really good role for him, for Benson. Like, and that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
I hearken back to Alex Peacock, where Alex Peacock was like the best number 2 I think Texas State's had in the last decade, where it's like this dude on any given night can give me 20 points per game, or he can give me 10 rebounds, or he can dish the ball, or he can shoot. But he was in a really good role. And it's like, I think Benson in a role where he's taking, what we say, one game he went 0 of 12, maybe 0 of 8 He's taking 8 shots a game, right? Or hey, he's playing tight defense and he only is getting, because if we're getting single digit points, I got no problem with that, in a complimentary role. But if you're coming to me being like, hey, is this like the guy? The answer has to be no,
But I
right?
would
Like
say the system benefited Alex more too, because this team has been playing from behind for like 2 years, it feels like.
the
And so like,
situation benefited, not the
well, no,
system, because
the
it's the
system
same system.
itself too. It's not the same system. These guys do not. I don't know. These guys shoot a lot more from the perimeter than Danny Kasper's guys ever did. Those guys were just going to the rim every single play. It felt like
We had more slashers.
dude.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
We had a bunch of big dudes who could not play basketball when Danny Kasper was around. That's what I'll say. A bunch of 6'5" dudes who could not get a rebound at all and who could not knock down a free throw. But we could get to the rim, goddammit.
Revisionist history. Revisionist history.
We could. They look up the stats. It was dog
I'm
shit.
saying, I know, I agree with you. I think that we had dudes that could get to the rim, but I'm not going to let you shit on our entire post game.
Well, how far did we make it in the tournaments?
Whatever. We'll move on.
Yeah. Let's talk about the women's team. Another kind of sad face to talk about. They lose in the first round to, who is it?
Georgia Southern.
There you go. I'm
going to spin this. I'm going to spin this one. They had an entire, okay, transfer portal what Texas State has turned into benefited the football team. It did not benefit the basketball team this year. And watching those games, I can tell you that they did not get on the same page until mid-January. So mid-January really to me is like the point where I can look at their season and say like, okay, from this point going forward, like what did they look like? Mm-hmm. And there was inconsistencies in shooting. There was inconsistencies in play. But I would say that I was disappointed in the result of the season. I thought they should have gone at least one round deeper, but I'm not disappointed in this team. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm sad for Coach Z. Love Coach Z. But you've been talking up about this freshman that's supposed to come in next year. You said that we're going to have an amazing year next year. You already said it.
I think we're going to have an incredible year next year. I think that there's a chance that Texas State, if we can keep the transfers that we brought in, and then we add the pieces that we are, because the name escapes me right now. It's been a long week. It's only Wednesday. She's not the only recruit that we're bringing in. We're bringing in a bunch of different recruits, and yeah, I'm excited. I think Texas State's going to be really good next year.
You were also saying, what were you saying?
How can I put words in Zimmel's mouth? Let's figure it out. Let's put it all together.
Yes. Hang on. Oh, this is what I was saying, not what you were saying. I think Coach Z has the most goodwill of any coaches right now because she hung a regular season title last year. Can you let her have a throwaway season? I think so.
The most goodwill?
Who has the most goodwill?
GJ?
No, he's already he banked it on the Delora thing.
You don't think GJ Kinney has more goodwill than Coach Z?
You think he just got a loan deferment for the Jordan McLeod thing, or you don't think
we argued last week about it? I was like, I think that he's okay. I think the McLeod thing is gonna move his stock back up.
Yeah, I for sure did.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope Coach G has the most of the non-football sports.
There you go. Okay.
Trout.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, Trout for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky Woodard. I just feel like if we're gonna throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, non-football, spring sport, winter sport only of the female sports.
There we go.
Yeah, Coach Z is just killing it. You're 100% right there. Look, I agree. I do think she has goodwill. I don't like the idea that this was a quote throwaway season. I do think that they're gonna have to make some changes when it comes to the point guard position. The additions maybe that like changes of things. I just didn't think this year that they were able to run the point guard the way that they had in the past. And that's partly because you're losing Kennedy, right? Like you knew there was going to be some growing pains in that position. You lose one of your all-time best players and yeah, you're going to regress. And it showed this year. Colton, we boxed you out. Bring it in.
I think a lot of the problems, like what you were saying, Andrew, was that the team chemistry just wasn't there. And I think it's hard to replicate what last year's team was, because it was basically a bunch of seniors who had played together for 4 years. This team was basically throwing a bunch of pieces together and seeing like throwing it against the walls, like seeing if it sticks, it sticks. And if it doesn't work, it just doesn't work. And it was kind of obvious. And the main thing that was with this team was just team turnovers. I mean, this, like, something me and Coach Z talked about, this team was, you could count on this team turning the ball over like 20 times a game. That's how bad it was.
Can't win games like that.
No, you can never win games like that. And it was frustrating because it was always like they would always get into these dog fights with a lot of these teams, and they would lose by like 5 or 6 points. And then you look at the turnovers, it's like, well, they turned the ball over 20 times and the other team scored like 20 points. And Coach Z it felt like it was just like beating your head against a brick wall and expecting it to move, because it was the exact same issue. Like, lo and behold, when they beat ULM, they cut their turnovers in half, and yeah, they ended up winning the game. And a lot of this, like Coach Z went into a lot of detail, is like a lot of it had to do with communication, just knowing where like people are going to be and all of that stuff. And I think that was something they really struggled with. But at the same time, that's what you get when you throw a bunch of people in for the first time in a season. And I think that's kind of like the bad side of what we were talking about with the transfer portal is like, yes, you can bring in a lot of this talent, but like if the team chemistry isn't there, the team chemistry isn't there, and it's going to hurt you more than what it's going to be good, if that makes sense.
Which is why what football did this past season is so miraculous, because rarely ever does that happen. And it just, everything clicked at the right time in the right moments. If we lose against Baylor, I don't know if it does click. If we drop 2 games,
Let's start the conversation. Is it easier to build a team through the transfer portal in football than it is in basketball? Here's my case. Okay. With football, you're a collective fist, right? Like, you're all getting beat the same way in the weight room. You're all getting beat in the film study. You're all getting like drawn together, right? And it doesn't matter if it's transfers or if it's organically grown, you have to have that camaraderie, right? Whereas in basketball, a more individual sport, it's harder to like, okay, how does my game adapt to your game, adapt to his game, adapt to their game, right? Is football an easier sport to transfer you it than basketball? Colton?
I think you can't use our football team as an example for transfer you, because Kenny literally imported almost half of his team from UIW.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
And that's the thing that's always concerned me, like when you transfer all these, like the only reason I think it worked at Texas State with GJ King, because he had people that knew what the coaching staff was, what the expectation was. Like the entire offensive line knew what the standard was. So it's hard to say like whether that clicked or not. Well, it helped with Texas State because about half the team knew like what the expectation was and helped transition everyone like, okay, this is what's going on. And I think that what really helped the team there. I do agree with you on the basketball part. It's hard to throw when basketball is such kind of almost an individual sport, as you were saying. It's hard to adjust someone's game to their game, because Jedi Henson, before she came to Texas State, was killing it at Morgan State. And to come over here with basically, I swear, like 5 different people who are also coming from different universities to adjust their game to basically try to mesh this thing into one cohesive unit, it is tough. And I think that's what the people don't get about the transfer portal is like, they don't realize like how big team chemistry is. It is very critical that everyone is on the same page. And kind of with women's basketball, when no one's on the same page, like it's going to end up flopping in its face. So
you're turning the ball over 20 times.
Yes. I think it just depends on the situation on like, okay. And also it didn't help with from last year's team. There was only like 3 people who were returning from that championship culture, but they really didn't like contribute like major minutes. Like almost every major contributor from last year's team was gone. Like we're talking about just bench players who were coming in playing maybe 6 or 7 minutes, not putting in 10 or 15 minutes. This was really your definition of like a brand new team with brand new faces. And they're all saying like, okay, we got to play with each other. That takes time. And I think it's very difficult to kind of process and all of that stuff.
I'll say too, in Texas, the pool of talent in basketball, specifically at the D1 level, is a lot harder.
Oh my God, it's
because when I wrote that article for DCTF, there's only a, a handful of guys in the Sun Belt from Texas, and you'll find them pretty quick. There's a dude from ODU that was like a Dallas native or something, but kind of few and far between. Obviously, a lot of the guys from Texas State are, because Coach Johnson has that whole kind of corridor to work with, and they're in San Antonio a lot too. So it'd be interesting to see what they get. And obviously, we've done a very good job recruiting San Marcos High. Thank God, because those teams have been pretty good. And the last year, they had like one of the best teams in the state.
It's worth mentioning to me that there's a ton of NBA players who are from the state of Texas. So to say that like, oh, the talent pool in the state of Texas is just like it's hard to recruit. I understand that like the bigger flagship-ish schools, the schools that have played in national championships in the past decade, are going to go get some of those better players. But there's a lot of talent in the state. And
well, I'm saying if you're a top 30 recruit in Texas, you're not coming to Texas State. You can go anywhere else in the country.
If you're a top 30 recruit in golf, are you coming to Texas State?
Maybe. I don't know.
No.
Those guys just
If
won
you're
the
a
damn
top-
NIT. Maybe
If you're a top 30, yeah, I'm just making a point. If you're a top 30 recruit in softball, you coming to Texas State?
Perhaps, actually.
I don't know.
Look at what these girls are doing, baby.
25 to 30. I don't know. I just think that like to put the how about we do this? Because top 30 is a really small pool. If you're a top 50 recruit in the state of Texas, are you coming to Texas State for basketball?
If you're in the 40s, maybe. Yeah.
Colton?
I'm trying to go through like my basketball recruiting, like mine, because like I said, top 30, that's your Dukes, your North Carolinas. They're always going to get the first pickings of
your Texas is your Baylor's, your Texas Techs. That's what I'm saying here. That like
that's what I'm saying. There's too many good schools in Texas for this conversation to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like
no,
Texas,
I don't.
Their pick, Tech, Baylor.
I would argue that there is more untapped potential basketball wise in the state of Texas that Texas State could tap into than
no, that I agree with you with, because there are like different sections that I don't think people I think your main points are going to like the main recruiting points is obviously DFW and Houston, but then there's also the Austin San Antonio corridor. Also, the one that's really untapped is the High Plains, like Amarillo and Lubbock. There is a lot of really good basketball talent that goes really unnoticed. And you notice down in Division 2, Division 3, like where all the good, like your West Texas A&Ms, your Lubbock Christians, they're going out there and competing for national championships. You're telling me like you can't just plug one of those people like, hey, come play at Texas State. Like you can.
So it goes, and look, Coach G has done a really good job. I can tell you from firsthand experience that I have seen her at the Division 3 junior college national tournament recruiting players. All right. Like, and she brought one of the players from Blinn. Like they are going out there, they're hitting the pavement, they're doing the work. It's Coach Johnson that I'm kind of concerned about here, because
that's something that that I'm a little bit worried. That's the thing that scares me about men's basketball is like, I don't know like what this recruiting class, because I absolutely hate that we've been hitting the transfer portal to get all these guys. I'm more like, let's go get like a freshman that, that's not talked about as much, but like we can turn him into like something that's much bigger instead of like having to rely on all these transfers. That's why I really love like this player Coach Z got out of Rice High School, which I can't believe I'm blanking on her name, but like you look at their stat line and it's like jaw-dropping numbers, and it's like, how did nobody else but Texas State was able to offer, if that makes sense? But like the fact that we're not getting someone like, I feel like we haven't seen like a Jordan Mason or a Davion Sykes, because I feel like those were the two guys that were really like really big recruits, high school recruits, and they've obviously done really good for us, now that they had a chance to develop and all that stuff. But the fact like I'm not seeing like who's that next high school recruit going to be is, to me, is a little bit concerning.
Sonia Burks is her name.
Sonia Burks, yes. She had been, I think her senior night, it just stood out. It was like an 80-point triple-double. It was like 80 points, 14 steals and like 11 rebounds. It was like one of the most like, what the hell kind of Like stat lines,
75
I think
points, 19 rebounds, 15 steals.
there we go.
You know you're doing a good job when you have those like sports TikTok guys show up at your games with a gimbal and start filming the whole
God.
game for women's basketball on senior night. So shout out Tanya Burks.
I do
if
want to
we're
wrap
spending
up
so
this
much-
segment.
If we're spending so much damn time in Pensacola, why don't we have more Florida guys on the team? That's what I'm saying.
I wanted to wrap up this women's basketball segment with making a plug for our boss Ish, because they have their college basketball podcast on the Dave Campbell's network that is outstanding. It is an incredible women's basketball podcast. And if you guys have a chance, if you're a college basketball fan, as we get ready for March Madness, that is the podcast to watch and listen to.
Every time I talk to one of those guys, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about compared to them. The only school I can talk anything about is Texas State. So they can talk about every fucking school in the country.
Yep. Can they talk about the murder rates in San Antonio? I don't know.
They cannot. I can do that. Let's talk about baseball. Start with a sad thing. We lost to TAM UCC. Wamp, wamp. But
Colton was cheering.
happy
Colton
news.
was on the rooftops cheering from New Jersey
That
as
school,
Texas State lost the kick.
that school does not like to be called this anymore. But for the longest time, you would say "Go Durs, go," because the Islanders. You would say "Go Durs, go Durs, go."
Jacob has been known to dead name schools.
I have, but it's a cool campus. I've been over there a few times. So they lose to TAM UCC. But let's recap the funnest weekend maybe of Zimmel's life. He wasn't there, but he was texting me about all these games as they happen. I didn't watch any baseball this weekend. I was so mad. But they beat Houston on Friday night. Then they beat Texas on Saturday. And then we lose to LSU on Sunday.
So who's the real baseball fan of this podcast? Colton, you be the judge.
I've seen him in person already this year.
Andrew Zimmel, who is live texting Jacob. I'm on the edge of my seat. Will Texas knock off Texas? Like we beat Houston. Hey, can we beat LSU? I'm out here living and dying, blowing bubbles, and Jacob nowhere to be seen.
I was there 2 weeks ago. I was at the Carbot Classic.
Yeah, but this isn't 2 weeks ago.
Where
This
were
is
you?
2 weeks ago. This is
Where were you?
This is this week, and this week,
And
your
who
boy
booked
showed
Dalen
up.
Pena to start out this season, baby?
Your boy showed up, and look, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. Colton, you make the decision. You make the decision.
I love the
give you the
baseball
facts.
team.
You decide. We give you the facts. You decide.
I mean, Andrew, you were the one that was preparing for a Major League Baseball career, so I'm not
Hell
happy.
yeah, brother! This guy gets it. This
But
guy
who
gets it.
Who does Steven Trout like more? Me or Andrew?
That's what the fuck.
That's an obvious pick.
What does that matter? What does that matter?
Rowdy
That'd
loves
be
me.
like,
By the way, something that's not going to be talked about this whole season, but I think should be,
is how good of a
that-
journalist I am. Oh no.
No, Steve Trout lost a ton of weight. He lost at least 20 pounds.
Oh, he really did, yeah.
And he's trimmed up. Because when I see him run to the third baseline, I'm like, that's my guy. I start cheering for him too. So he's yoked right now, in case you guys are wondering. Any takeaways, Andy, about this weekend since you saw every single fucking game apparently?
Yeah, no, the Texas State baseball team doesn't have any fight or doesn't have
Any fight left?
Any fight left. They lost to A&M Corpus Christi. It's over.
They lost to the
Pack your
defending
bags.
national champions, and then they lost to TAM UCC.
That was
It's downhill from here.
It's over. Pack the bags. Party's over. No, the win against Texas, you could tell that they cared. You could, and look, this team, the bar should be set at Omaha. Like the bar should be set at Omaha for this baseball team. That is the expectations I think Trout has. That is the expectations that when I talk to other college writers, like college baseball writers and recruiters and MLB scouts who cover this shit, they all say Texas State's bar should be super regional. This is a team that is good enough to win the Sun Belt. This is a team that is good enough to try to make a run to Omaha. So when they beat Texas in what, like, was it 9 innings, 10 innings?
9 innings, yeah.
Thanks
To me,
for watching.
it says, huh?
I know that, but you didn't.
To me, it says that this team is not afraid of big moments. It tells me that early in the season that we already are seeing a pitching performance from middle relief that is making me scared because they had a big lead and they couldn't hold it. I would go out as on a limb and say this from this past weekend, and then of course the loss to Corpus Christi. Right, the season could not start better for Texas State. This is exactly what you wanted if you're a Bobcat fan.
Kind of a skunker at Carbach, I'll be honest, because the only game that they won was against Washington State. Those guys eventually won the tournament, but they lost to Kansas when I saw them Friday night, and then they lost to Kentucky Saturday night. And that was kind of But, they've been showing up at home. This weekend, they play Sam Houston, so they're going to whoop
That's a
some
huge series.
No, that's a very huge.
That's a big series. Last thing I want to say about the win against Texas, because I mentioned it the previous week to Jacob and Colton. You already know this, but I'm just reminding the fans here that this is a 3-game series with the Longhorns and Texas State. I said, 3-game series this year, right? This tournament, and then we play them in San Marcos and then back at Dish. I said that Texas State wants to win the season series because this is a team that they potentially could be playing in the playoffs. Like, this is a team that potentially, if you get to that point, you're going to have to go through Texas or a team like Texas, God forbid Texas A&M, because I know Colton would have to wear a split jersey for that one. But you would think to yourself that you're going to have to play Texas again to beat them in the season series, to go into a series with them. You feel a little bit more confident.
Yes, I believe that too.
Yeah. Like I said, the one thing that just scares me about this team is pitching. It's been hair pulling. Especially watching the A&M Corpus Christi game, when Tony Roby only lasts 1.2 innings, I'm like, oh God, what's going on? And then all of a sudden the bullpen kind of just collapses because they can't keep the lead and all that stuff. And it's not just that. It's kind of been consistent. You saw it at the Kerbach Classic where they really should have beat Kansas, but their starting pitcher gave up 3 runs in the first inning, and all of a sudden
that was our boy Peyton Zabel too.
Yeah.
Could that just be early season? Could that just be early season getting the rotation right?
But none of those guys at the Carbach Classic played more than 3 innings either. So it's to Andrew's point, a lot of these guys aren't getting that many pitches in yet.
I think a lot of it is just since we're in the early season, we don't know, we're still figuring out because since we are replacing all of our weekend starts, I think this is kind of, let's see how mainly the offense has to carry this team through the early season so we can figure out pitching.
Yeah.
The one pitcher I will say that's kind of been a surprise for me is Matthew Tippy, the guy that closed it out against A&M. Yep. And he also against A&M Corpus Christi came in. He was one of only 2 pitchers to set the Islanders down in order. And the other one was Nathan Martinez.
I really
He's
like
kind of been
from the bullpen. I really like Taylor C too. He's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love his motion. Little awkward sometimes at the Carbach Classic, but that was the first time I got to see him. And then he played, I think, again. Houston? I think it was Houston.
It might have been Houston.
But
yeah. I think it might be a little bit jitters, but considering how big RPI is, they really couldn't afford to lose a game against A&M Corpus Christi, because now if you look at the RPI, instead of being at 70, they're dropped all the way down to 100.
Come on, it's the fucking 13th game of the season or whatever.
Well, memes are sensitive to highs and lows in this thing.
But I think also it's just I think it's because my expectation is just so high for this team, because this is the team that beat Texas.
They lost 6-5. It's not like they lost 13-0. What are we talking about here?
They should have closed that game last night out.
But it was also the way they lost against A&M Corpus Christi, because Chase Moore basically takes the lead back for them in the bottom of the 7th, and then the top of the 8th inning, Jack Stroud comes in. The basic hey, let's put this game away, and then he gives up a 2-run RBI single, and then we can't. It's just the little things that just concern me, and I think it's because, as you were saying, Andrew, the expectations are for this team is just so high. This is the team I expect to be competing at the NCAA regionals, going to super regionals to compete for a spot at Omaha. I guess because I just expect more from this team to put away these midweek games, if that makes sense.
When we get to conference play, we'll look back on this and be like, wow, we did a really whatever. It doesn't, to me, this part of the season is just tune-up. I'm not all that concerned. Not all that
Okay.
concerned. A win against Texas matters.
Well,
a
yeah.
loss, a loss to Texas A&M Corpus Christi to me matters not that much. I'm not all that concerned.
I think to Colton's point though, because there's so much expectations with this team, like I feel like you can only really carry that hype for so long. And this is like third year of like mega hype for the baseball team. We talk about like year over year performance for like attendance and then donations and stuff like that. Baseball team has been kicking ass for quite a while. So like, how long can you go? Should this team have kind of a season like they did last year where they kind of fell apart at the end? They lost that 3-game series to the Cajuns, then they kind of skunked out into the SBC tourney. If that happens again, I don't know if we do have such high expectations into next year.
We're 3 weeks in.
I'm just saying it's dangerous. I'm just saying.
What do you want from this team? Let me just ask this. Like, if they come into the Sun Belt Conference tournament as a 3 seed, are you like, oh, hold on a second? Like, let's
I didn't say anything about that. I just said
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm like, we literally are like in the infancy stages of this season, and we're like, hey, I don't know how much goodwill this team. I'm Mr. Negative, and you people are just insane. Like, this is like an insane thing to be like, hey, they stunk at the Dell Diamond, man. They barely beat Texas, and they lost to the Islanders. I don't know about this team. Like, just relax. Just everybody take a break. Just take a beat. It's okay. We'll be okay.
Well, RPI does mean something, unfortunately.
Does it? Not this early in the season. Not this early in the season, it doesn't.
The first RPI rankings came out, I think, for softball. I think for baseball, it'll be like another 2 weeks or something. They came out.
You talked to me in mid-April, and you're like, hey, we lost to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and we went from the second quad to the 15th quad. Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, now we need to talk because maybe we don't get a bid to one of these. We're okay. It's okay. We'll be fine.
But this is why people listen to us, though, because you'll know not everybody is producing podcasts right now. We're alarmist early, so we can be alarmists later too. So we can tell you, we told you this shit 3 months ago.
I will say this is the one corner, and take you behind the velvet curtain here, Colton. When we have our pre-show meetings, Jacob says, what corner can we be on first? And I'm always like, hey man, let's try to be positive. And he goes, let's go with the most negative take we can have. And then if we're right, we can say, hey, we were first. And then I'm like, all right, great. I guess I'll come out and say that thing that nobody wants to say. It's been a tried and true formula ever since I said Karen Chisholm should retire in 2015. Ever since then, we've been just easing our way to this point.
Yeah, if you want to check RPI early, the one thing I've been checking is the Warren Nolan website because they've got baseball and softball RPIs. That's kind of what I've been checking, which is why I think the reason I'm mainly concerned about the A&M Corpus Christi loss is because we just came off of beating Texas, and
kind of a busted rotation though after playing LSU. No, I know.
Yeah, but I'll go. You know what? I'll trust Andrew on this one. It is early in the season. Let's just wait till conference play. If, like I said, this loss may not mean anything if we just rip off like a 7-game winning streak and all of that stuff. I'll trust you, Andrew. I'll try to be positive for this baseball season.
Ooh, something we can all be positive about is softball.
Jessica Mullins. Let's say it, baby.
Oh yeah,
Jessica Mullins, perfect game, or as Andrew likes to call it, her perfect smile. So,
not me. I want to make it abundantly clear that Durag Bobcat is not affiliated with Andrew Zimmel. He does not speak for Andrew Zimmel.
Might be your burner, bro.
He is not the burner. I have a burner. That is not the burner. Video. That is not the burner. I have a burner. If you ever find it, it's all Mandarin Chinese. That's where I practice my Chinese. I'm on the Chinese Twitter. I'm out here trying to free Taiwan and Mandarin. All right. That's the burner. Okay.
He just got banned in China for sure. One flag down for squaring around. Softball's been crushed.
She's incredible. Jessica's insane.
Oh God, yeah.
She is. Look, somebody said that she's the best pitcher in Texas softball history. Let's pump the brakes there. Randy Rupp was really good. She was really, really good.
Yeah, Kat Osterman's baby named after her.
Yeah, former teammates.
That's how
Kat Osterman, Randy Rupp. They played on, I want to say, Cleveland together. Cleveland Comets. Anyway, dude,
That's WNBA.
is it?
Yeah.
All right,
Let
Jacob,
me
let's
look.
run this shit. What is the women's professional softball team in Cleveland?
I have no idea. You're asking the wrong dude.
Because I swear I thought they were in Cleveland. Cleveland Comets. What did I say?
The wrong thing.
What did I say, Colton? What did I say? Because you said WNBA.
Oh, okay, you're right. I guess I was thinking about the Cleveland Rockers. That's what the WNBA team I was thinking about. Okay. No. I got you.
The hell is going on?
This is Jacob. We're very close. We're very close to getting this podcast canceled. We're very close.
We already did. China, we're done. We're off air already.
I had some choice words for Colton McWilliams right now, but I didn't say them. I kept them to myself. I kept them on myself. Let's go this way.
Okay,
We'll
go
stay
ahead.
positive. Positive.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, that's the whole reason I brought up the softball team.
Big deep breath. Jessica Mullins is perfect. Perfect game in 7 innings. Something that we don't see a lot from the Bobcats. We don't see a lot from it's a rarity. And I think in these instances, we need to appreciate it. Appreciate greatness. Appreciate the greatness in the circle that is Jessica Mullins. Now, Colton, you told me that we have the best rotation since when? Because we're going to pin you down on this.
All right. I think probably since 2018, like when, like as you were saying, like with Rupp and Megan King and all of them. Yeah.
I feel like Megan King didn't get enough credit, honestly. Megan King was great.
She is the, what would you say? She's like the lettuce between like two really good burger patties. Like it's a great piece of lettuce, but it's going to get looked because of how the grade A beef that is Randy Rupp and Jessica Mullins.
I get you. Yeah. Because who was it? Megan King and Jessica played at the same high school, I think. Or was it Randy and Jessica? Whatever. One of them did. Two of them did. I'm a softball fan. I've been watching a lot more this year, actually. In opposition of watching basketball, actually, I've been watching softball. So shout out softball. I'm actually learning too the game. So maybe I actually will write something for the softball conference tournament when it comes to sunny San Marcos this summer, right? I think it's in May. Yeah. By the way, if you guys are curious, and I know a lot of our listeners are curious Georges, you can watch a live stream of the South End Zone complex being built right now at 1 a.m. Some insane person was watching, and it was not me, but another person was watching that stream. I was prepping for this interview, or not an interview, but obviously our podcast right now. And I saw another person watching that shit.
It was Megan King and Jessica Mullins. They went to the same high school.
Do
you know the name of the high school?
It's in.
Is it Barber Hills?
Austin, right?
There it is.
There you go.
Colton got it. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, that was revealed to us by Coach Woodard. She was like, "Yeah, I'm the GOAT. Talk about it."
Yeah, I just keep going to the same school.
I just keep going to the same school year after year.
They need to have like all the coaches get together and they go like, "What's your recruiting strategy?" GJ Kinney's like, "I don't know. I just go out and get the best talent available in the transfer portal." And then the rest of the coaches need to get together and be like,
much to my school's chagrin.
Yeah, right. The rest of the coaches need to get together and be like, we just go to the same school and just keep grabbing players. And TJ's like, write this down. Go to the same school with players.
You mean to tell me you go to high schools and recruit people?
You mean to tell me you go to those stinky gyms?
I didn't know a couple DMs. By the way, I follow Summer Kinney on Instagram. Now my timeline is littered with GJ Kinney affiliated content. They just celebrated their kid's birthday. Shout out Lincoln.
Colton, is that weird to follow the head coach's wife on Instagram?
How is that weird? First of all,
no, don't defend yourself.
Blair Trout follows Squarin around. So I follow Blair Trout too. So I get a lot of Steve Trout affiliated content on my stuff.
Colton, be the judge. Is it weird to follow your head coach's
That, that,
wife
that,
on
that, that,
Instagram?
that is a little bit weird.
Listen, I'm an
Like,
investigative reporter. I'm here for GJ Kinney content.
Let me ask you this. Sydney Sweeney.
oh God.
What the fuck?
If you see somebody following Sydney Sweeney on Instagram, do you judge them, Colton?
A little bit, yeah. I like
Don't-
why you
Somebody's
really
gonna look up Colton's Instagram now and see if he's following Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, that's
Or how many WWE divas he's following.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking the questions. Jacob?
No, I don't judge people who follow Sydney Sweeney.
You don't judge
Mostly
people-
because here's the thing. If you follow a celebrity online, first of all, you have to be at some level delusional. You're never gonna get with them. You're a regular person, just like you and me. Do you follow them? I follow Sydney Sweeney. Damn it. This is the hill I'll die on. I'm never gonna meet Sydney Sweeney.
I'm asking the questions. Just asking questions. Looking
I'm
for
not
answers.
gonna meet her. It's okay.
Just
I follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
Maybe she follows his podcast.
She's not. She's not.
Thanks for
Just
squaring around,
asking,
everybody.
yeah, just asking around. Just asking questions. Colton does not follow Sydney Sweeney. I think it's worth mentioning that Colton does not objectify women.
Okay, perfect. I still have
like,
this
like
recording.
I say, it's just really weird because
How is that weird? She's not a porn star.
it's just really weird to me. Like I don't.
She's just a famous, beautiful white woman.
See, Colton only follows people that he knows.
Yes,
Jacob.
that's why I got Instagram. Like I just
Yeah.
follow.
That's why I got Instagram.
Yeah.
Earlier, you just get Instagram pictures, post pictures of like the river, and then post pictures of my nephew. That's really what I use
No,
Instagram for.
that
My
is-
bad. I
it's-
guess I'm using Instagram wrong.
It's very wholesome. Like he literally uses it. And again, I'm sorry that I'm stalking you here, Colton, but he uses it to network. He uses it like case in point, he's following other journalists. He's following other media people. He's following athletes, right? So TJ Finley, right? Somebody that you want to pay like attention to. There's no like thirst traps. There's nothing of like, scantily clad women. Colton McWilliams is by far the best of us. And I want to put that on the record.
I'm glad I'm still rolling for this, by the way.
If you go to Jacobs, which is dangerous, you go to Jacobs, there's a lot
Private
of
account.
questionable. A
Who?
lot of
Who is
questionable.
questionable on there? Sydney Sweeney is an actress, first of all. She just hosted SNL.
So who is Bella Hadid? I guess that makes sense. She's a model. So okay, you're following a model. What is that for? Gonna reach out to her for a podcast interview?
Perhaps.
Kanye West. It's kind of
Kanye, bro. That's the best rapper alive. Kanye Omari West.
Kind of eye raising a deal. This one,
I have a freaking Kanye bear right here. All right, I'm a real fan.
Yeah. How about those kids in Gaza, Jacob? How do you feel about them?
What the hell does that have anything to do with this?
I like Jake. What the fuck is wrong
He's
with
in the
you?
Middle East, everybody. I want that on the
All right.
record.
Okay. All right.
By the way, we're not streaming anymore in Palestine or Israel, for that matter.
Yeah. Elon cut our fucking video feed.
All right,
No,
go ahead,
it's
go
fine.
ahead
There's
and
not
wrap
like
this segment. Or you're trying to trash me, but there's nothing to trash because
There's
there's
no-
nothing
no,
wrong
there's-
with
there's no
following a
problem.
celebrity online because I'm never gonna meet any of these people.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a very fair thing.
Now, do I DM Dak Prescott? Absolutely. I DM a lot of professional athletes who are men on the Dallas Cowboys specifically.
So you have two Instagram accounts, Jacob.
Yeah, one's a photo account.
So when you follow somebody on both accounts, what does that mean?
Oh, who's am I following on both?
I'm just asking.
Who am I following on both?
I'm just asking.
Oh,
What do you think that means?
I don't know. I don't use my photo account really anymore.
So you use it mainly to what? Stalk?
No, not even. I'm not even logged in on my phone. I'm logged in on my computer at work. And that's how I pull video from Instagram when I need to.
That information is very interesting for some of the accounts that photo one follows.
What is
Just
the
leave it
photo
at
one
that.
follow?
Let's
What is
leave
the
it at
photo
that.
one follow?
Let's leave it at that.
Oh my God.
Just interesting. That's all I'm gonna say. Just interesting.
You're a real bitch. Thanks for scoring around, everybody.
We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
Better not come any closer.
Thanks for listening. New episodes out every Thursday. Follow the boys on Twitter. Eat 'em up. Eat 'em up.